We are all waiting with bated breath for Judge Lyman to make a decision on the MSJ and MJOP. And in the meantime, I decided, let me reread Blake Lively's second amended complaint. And we're going to read it from two sources, one from Blake Lively herself, and the other is from the red line version. Why are we going to read the red line version? It's because it allows us to see what's behind the black boxes. And as we know, that's when we found out one of her pieces of proof was that August 8th was a Thursday. These videos will be 30 minutes or less, and I will have commentary. So this will not be just a straight reading of her complaint. So if you are looking for that, this is not that video. With that said, let's go. Plaintiff Blake Lively brings this action for damages against Wayfarer Studios LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, Justin Baldoni, an individual, Jamie Heath, an individual, Steve Sarwitz, an individual. It Ends With Us Movie LLC, a California limited liability company, Melissa Nathan, an individual, the agency group PR LLC, a Delaware limited liability company, and Jennifer Abel, an individual, Jed Wallace, an individual, and Street Relations Inc., a Texas corporation. As we know, Blake Lively tried to bring in Jed Wallace in her first amended complaint. He was dismissed due to lack of jurisdiction. Then she tried to bring him again into it with the second amended complaint by making an argument like August 8th was a Thursday, and how all these social media sites either have an office in New York or have employees in New York. That's how flimsy her argument was, and the judge saw it for what it was and threw it out again for lack of jurisdiction for Jed Wallace and Street Relations Inc. Introduction. Are you confident enough to listen to the women in your life, to hear their ideas and their solutions, to hold their anguish and actually believe them, even if what they're saying is against you? And will you actually stand up and do something so that one day we don't have to live in a world where a woman has to risk everything and come forward to say the words, "Me Too"? Justin Baldoni, Why I'm Done Trying to Be Man Enough, 2017. I have never heard in this whole situation another woman say "Me Too." And I know that there have been pushes from Blake Lively supporters claiming that there's 9, 10, 11, 12, up and up and up and up of women that have come out to talk against Justin Baldoni. I will give them that there are people that are willing to talk negatively about Justin Baldoni. That is not the same as saying "Me Too." That is not saying I was sexually harassed by Justin Baldoni. That is not the story by any of the other women. And the only thing they have from Jenny Slate was the sexy comment. And in that, she even said that it got resolved and she moved on, and that's why she never wanted to sue. So with that said, people can try very, very hard to say that there's people that said "Me Too" in this situation. Nobody did. Not even Jenny Slate. Because if there was a "Me Too" there, she could have said it right when Blake Lively came out with the New York Times hit piece. But Jenny only said that she supported her, thought she was so strong around the alleged smear campaign. But mum's the word about the SH allegation. One, plaintiff Blake Lively brings this lawsuit because she was unlawfully retaliated against for coming forward and reporting sexual harassment that occurred against her and others on the set of It Ends With Us, the film. Now, we had always wondered, what is her protected activity? So some people say it was the 17-point side agreement, which was eventually signed on January 19, 2024. And she did put in her lawsuit on December 31, 2024. So I don't know what the time frame is. But the thing is, the 17-point side agreement was not an HR complaint. It did not go to HR. It went to general counsel. And it is a contract renegotiation. That is what it was. So two, defendant, Wayfarer Studios LLC, Wayfarer, is the owner of the film. Defendant Justin Baldoni is the co-chairman and co-founder of Wayfarer and also served as director, executive producer, and actor in the lead role of Ryle Kincaid in the film. Miss Lively played the leading role of Lily Bloom in the film. At all times during the production, editing, and promotion of the film, Mr. Baldoni was Miss Lively's boss. Now, we know for a fact that the executive producer credit was taken away from Justin Baldoni at some point, so he was not the executive producer, at least not listed in the movie. It's interesting that they actively removed the fact that Miss Lively was a PGA credited producer. I think they didn't want to open up that Pandora's box. Also, this idea that Baldoni was Miss Lively's boss during production, editing, and promotion of the film, her text messages don't give that vibe at all. Because I think that if somebody was my boss, I would be talking to them throughout the whole process. And Justin Baldoni got iced out. There was a lot of middle people having the conversation with Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath instead of with Blake Lively? When in history have you had an employee say, I'm not going to talk to my boss, I'm going to have someone else talk on my behalf to my boss? That sounds like an independent contractor to me. 3. For years prior to the release of the film, Mr. Baldoni portrayed himself as a leader of the male feminist movement, writing books, hosting podcasts, and holding TED Talks on the topic. In reality, however, Mr. Baldoni's public persona is a stark contrast to his private behavior, which is replete with hypocrisy, misogyny, and retaliation. In public, Mr. Baldoni gave the appearance of taking responsibility for the fact that he had unconsciously been hurting and silencing the women in his life, and implored men to be man enough to shut the up and listen to women. He claimed that he wanted to end toxic masculinity, acknowledging his own toxic behavior by admitting that there is a woman or two that I in some way made uncomfortable by saying something or doing something that was chauvinistic or sexist. There is 1,000,000% probability that that exists, and that he wanted to say he was sorry and would do better. Mr. Baldoni echoed this narrative while marketing the film. In an interview on CBS discussing the release of the film on August 7, 2024, he claimed, I want men to stop asking the question, why do women stay? I want men to take accountability. I want men to hold other men accountable. At his own moment of truth, when forced to confront women he had made uncomfortable on his own set, he trivialized their concerns and failed to take accountability for the effects of his behavior, whether intended or not. And when faced with the predictable consequences of having created a toxic set, namely that the cast did not want to appear alongside him in public, rather than holding himself accountable, Mr. Baldoni hid behind his billionaire friend and retained publicists, crisis managers, digital media strategists, and litigators to mount a sophisticated and well-funded retaliation campaign that sought to bury and destroy anyone that challenged his brand. That campaign has succeeded beyond Mr. Baldoni's wildest expectations. In fact, the defendant's actions have created such a toxic climate of online vitriol against Miss Lively, her family, other members of the cast, and various fact witnesses that all of the above have received disturbing threats. One fact witness known to publicly support Miss Lively recently received a written threat indicating that the witness's family would be sexually assaulted and killed unless the witness agreed to make a statement and give the truth. This type of climate was the predictable, if not inevitable, result of the retaliatory campaign launched by the Baldoni Wayfarer parties both before and after the litigation began. There's a few things I think about on paragraph 5. 1, this idea that the cast did not want to appear alongside him in public. She was the instigator behind that. As much as Blake Lively would like to credit the quote unquote toxic set for the reason that the cast would not be seen publicly with Justin Baldoni, all signs point to Blake Lively as the reason why they wouldn't. She didn't want them to. And whatever tactics she used to ensure that they wouldn't work. Also, it makes me laugh when Blake Lively talks about a billionaire friend, publicists, crisis managers, digital media strategists, and litigators. She has all of those things at her fingertips, and they engaged in smearing Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer. So to me, every allegation is a confession coming out of Blake Lively's mouth. Also, this idea that the defendants were the ones that created the toxic climate of online vitriol against Lively is, again, another way of Blake Lively showing that she does not know how to take personal accountability for the things that came out of her own mouth. Yes, sometimes people's reaction may have been over the top, but for you to act like that is not a normal reality in social media. I'm not saying it should be. I'm not saying I like it myself as someone who does content creation. When people go overboard with anything, because it's hurtful, because there's human beings on the other side, right, of everything. But it just makes me go, you do know that this is not just about you, Blake. This is a situation that happens in social media. And for you to act like your words wasn't enough to trigger people's responses and that it had to be Justin Baldoni, again, you are in the space where you think that you are the main character of everybody's life. Also, this idea that the death threats were only happening to her side. Her lawsuit opened up death threats to the other side as well. The defendants were getting death threats. That included a bunch of the women that she sued. She would love to make this about a women versus man thing. The reality is Blake Lively sued two women who owned women-owned businesses and tried to wreck their livelihood. So the idea that only her side got death threats, or at least the only ones that mattered was her side. I'm not a fan of her saying like this was the inevitable decision of you to put this out in public. The minute you put in this lawsuit, the minute you decided to actually first go to the New York Times and do like a little mini hit piece there, because you chose to do that first, you opened up Wayfarer to death threats. They got death threats probably before your team did because your voice got to be heard first. Their side of the story didn't get to be heard first. So people said a whole lot of vitriol things to them as well. So I'm not saying that it's okay that your team got it, but to act like their team didn't get it based off of the things that you did by making this public instead of just going straight to the courts and not making it a public spectacle. Again, I would love to see, I don't know, some semblance of personal accountability, responsibility coming out of Blake Lively, but I don't see it. If I have to hold my breath waiting for her to make any sign of I take personal accountability, responsibility for the things I did, I will pass out and die. One of the most frustrating things about this whole case is watching so many people who have so many things to be held accountable for act like they have nothing to be accountable for. They're not responsible for any of the mess that we're in right now. 6, the dangerous climate of threats, harassment, and intimidation fueled by the defendant's retaliation campaign has required Ms. Lively to alter her personal and professional life and take steps to protect innocent bystanders rather than exposing them to further harm. Thus, this amended complaint does not refer to certain witnesses by name, nor does it provide screenshots of their text messages. Importantly, however, these witnesses have given Ms. Lively permission to share the substance of their communications in this amended complaint as contained herein, and they will testify and produce responsive documents in the discovery process. I call cap. I call BS. Never once did I ever feel like you went and protected any of these people. You drag a bunch of people that don't need to be part of this case into this case. You bring a bunch of innocent bystanders every 5 seconds, Blake. You brought in 107 content creators by subpoenaing them. You are the epitome of wanting to bring everybody else in that has nothing to do with this case. You're out here trying to connect Rebel Wilson's situation to you. This is how much, it's laughable to me for her to say that she wants to protect innocent bystanders when all she's ever done is drag them into this whole thing. The fact that Wayfarer gave Isabella Ferrer an out and Blake Lively said no, because the only reason that Isabella Ferrer stays in this somehow is because Blake Lively wants her in, period. Because according to Isabella Ferrer, she does not want to be involved. So if Wayfarer says you can be out if Blake Lively's okay with it, and she's still not out, Blake Lively's the only one keeping her in. So how is she exactly protecting innocent bystanders? And don't tell me it's because Isabella is a victim. Isabella never even said that. She said she was comfortable. It's just now she just looking back after talking to Jenny Slate and Blake Lively, they made her rethink everything. But at the end of the day, during filming, while everything was going on, she was fine. And so this idea that she was a victim, well, then co-sign with Blake Lively, get on a lawsuit with Blake Lively. No, she did not, because she knew she had no good reason to do so. Miss Lively brought this lawsuit because she was one of the women, or two, that Mr. Baldoni 1,000,000% made uncomfortable on the set of the film. As detailed in her opening complaint and below, Miss Lively was disturbed by the fact that Mr. Baldoni spoke about his pornography addiction, divulged information about his sex life, made derogatory, degrading, and sexual comments, described his own genitalia, which we now know is about circumcision. To me, that calling it describing his own genitalia is so deceptive. Improvised intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively in advance. She did the same, but again, rules for thee, not for me, apparently for Blake Lively. And added graphic content to the script, including multiple new scenes with nudity and a chaotic and violative birthing scene for which he cast a friend as her OBGYN, among other things. 8. But Miss Lively was not the only one who was uncomfortable on set, and Mr. Baldoni and Wayfarer knew it. After Mr. Baldoni learned that he had caused Miss Lively and others to feel uncomfortable, he turned his TED Talk and feminist advocacy on his head. He did not hold himself and other men accountable or take his own advice to be confident enough to hold their anguish and actually believe them, but instead used a louder voice to silence Miss Lively and anyone else who might speak up. That louder voice, amplified by publicists, crisis managers, digital media teams, and lawyers, have sought to mislead the public into believing that Miss Lively did not experience sexual harassment by portraying her as a powerful bully who fabricated claims of misconduct in order to seize control of Mr. Baldoni's movie. This narrative is false and nonsensical on its own terms, completely at odds with Mr. Baldoni's confession to his crisis manager on August 30, 2024, that Miss Lively is the kind of person that genuinely believes she's right and that all of this is unjust, and is breathtakingly cynical from a man whose public brand is built upon a pro-feminist facade that urges others to listen to and believe women. First and foremost, the August 30, 2024 text message was not about the sexual harassment allegations. It was about the whole thing with the people not liking her promotion, really. I mean, at least that's how I read that text message. More importantly, the defendant's false narrative crumbles under the indisputable truth that Miss Lively was not alone in complaining about Mr. Baldoni and raised her concerns contemporaneously as they arose in 2023, not in connection with some imagined power play for control of the film in 2024. The experiences of Miss Lively and others were documented at the time they occurred, starting in May of 2023. Here's the thing: when you say starting in May of 2023, it also ended in May of 2023. That's what bothers me about the phrasing of this. Let's remember that Blake Lively complained to Ange Giannetti on May 26th. On May 27th, Jenny Slate's manager talked to Ange Giannetti, and Ange said that she didn't even seem to know what the issue was. And because she couldn't convey what Jenny's issue was, Ange said, just have Jenny call me. And then on May 28th, Jenny spoke with Alex Sachs, and I don't know, I assume that she also talked to Ange, but I can't recall off the top of my head. And I think it was by May 29th is when they were alerted. Justin Baldoni and them were alerted, or maybe it was May 28th, one of those days, May 28th, May 29th, they were alerted about these issues that Jenny Slate and Blake Lively had. And he responded that they would make changes imminently and accordingly. Imminently for Blake Lively and accordingly for Jenny Slate. So that to me doesn't show that someone didn't take their concerns seriously. Also, everything ended. There was no other complaints in June of 2023. She had no other listed complaint. When they say that it started in May, it also ended in May. That's why I'm going, why are you making a big stink in November 2023 when everything was contained within a small window of time? You had filmed 16 days in phase 1. I understand she filmed more in phase 2, but I'm saying for the time you're accusing them, everything was taken care of within the same month, within the same week. And this is why Jenny Slate even said that as far as she was concerned, things got resolved. Importantly, and contrary to the entire narrative defendants have invented, Mr. Baldoni acknowledged the complaints in writing at that time. And exactly my point. He did acknowledge it because he took it seriously. How can you fix something without acknowledging it and taking it seriously? Why are you trying to use that against him? As if it was a bad thing that he acknowledged the thing that he's trying to fix because she had an issue. He knew that other women, other than Miss Lively, was also uncomfortable and had complained about his behavior. Yes, Jenny Slate. And she appreciated what he said until Blake Lively said it's not enough. And then suddenly she's changing her tune and saying, yeah, I agree, it's not enough. Like toxic. On May 2023, Lively confided in a text to a woman who was a mutual friend of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. I was going to invite you to set tomorrow. These people, whoa, it's like HR nuts today. The both of them. I wasn't expecting that turn. I mean, it's been present, but today I came home and cried. Further in exchange, Miss Lively describes Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath as creeps. Like, keep your hormones to yourself. This is not mine. I don't want it. I don't want you, gaze or words or tongue or videos of your naked wife. Yeah, it's shocking. Clowns. Okay. So we know because May 24th is the dance scene, part of the love montage, and also the day that Jamie Heath showed the birth video to Blake Lively. We already know that she ends up trying to put S's where S's don't exist. This is why she tried to make it sound like there were all these other women and no other woman except for Jenny Slate came out. She wants to put S's where S's don't exist. And I'm sorry, when you're calling somebody creeps or clowns, especially the words clowns, that's not someone you're afraid of. You think they're a joke. You think that they are a joke. This is when you know that this person actively engages in manipulative ways of language. When she says, I don't want your gaze or words or tongue or videos of your naked wife, we know for a fact that Justin Baldoni has a conversation with her because he's trying to have them look at each other for the scene during this dance scene that they are doing. But she wants to talk. And so he was talking about how him and his wife, Emily, stare at each other. But that probably it would make her uncomfortable and she thought it was what did she say? She called him a psychopath or a sociopath. I think she says sociopath. For wanting to look at your spouse, for wanting to stare at your spouse. She thought that was so sociopathic to do. So anyways, so when she says, I don't want your gaze, he wasn't looking at you. He was looking at Lily as Ryle. Your words. Okay, I still don't know what those words were. And she's never said what words he ever said. What words? Because you made us think, Blake Lively, that he said some sexually harassing, inappropriate words to you during the dance scene, only to find out he talked about your husband and his wife. So what words? You still have never attributed what words he was saying to you. The sexy comment? That's it. Or tongue. Still don't know where's the tongue. We definitely didn't see in the dance montage. You're saying it on May 24th. Where's the tongue? I don't even know. Or videos. There's another thing. Videos of your naked. He did not show you more than one video. And he didn't even show you more than a few seconds of this video. So this is what I'm saying. Over exaggeration. When you have too much evidence showing otherwise, that these things, she may have been feeling this. I'm never going to say that Blake Lively didn't feel these things. But does it rise to the level of sexual harassment? Was this something that wasn't able to be dealt with in real time? Did it need to escalate to this level? No. And Justin Baldoni did take it seriously. That's why, even though they're trying to use it against him, he did acknowledge it and said that changes would be made, and changes were made based off of what she wanted. So where does she really suffer any consequence for anything? Anyways, y'alls, I only made it to page 7 and point 10. I don't know. Maybe I won't be able to do this series because it's going to take too long. I need to stop myself from having a comment every 5 seconds, but it just makes me livid, reliving her second amended complaint. I forget how upsetting this second amended complaint is until I reread it, just based off of all the evidence that's been made available to us. So we know how much proof there is that what she's saying is not accurate. And so it's frustrating to me. But anyways, if you want me to actually still try to do this series, feel free to like this video, subscribe to me if you haven't subscribed to me yet. Okay, folks, thanks. Bye.